Welcome back everyone, and it's time to go ballsy! Today we are talking about the birth of a demon.
What do you mean by that?
Well, My Hero Academia chapter 330 has revealed Shigaraki and All For One's fusion as they merge into something completely different. Yes, you heard that right. Not only do protagonists unlock drip, but this also occurs for villains. Just look at Shigaraki. Now remember last week we talked about Stars and Stripes appearing to face Shigaraki?
No!
The #1 strongest woman in the entire world? Well, a lot of you made some funny ass comments.
I have to break your neck. It's just the way it is. I'm just a messenger.
So I want to thank you guys for being such a great and funny community. I know my analysis and opinions can be quite raw, but I'll be shouting those of you that help me out weekly. So make sure to join us by smashing that like button and hitting the notification bell so you don't miss out next time. You must join our community to stay on the same page. Chapter 330 kicks off with the Walmart Avengers assembling into formation. They activate their force fields to defend themselves against Shigaraki and his EMP blast quirk, as well as shit like this. The pilots ask Stars and Stripes for orders, to which she responds with Smash! They all take a formation to exterminate Shigaraki, and if the fodder characters die in battle, she will make sure to return their bodies to their families. Oh, let's pretend to care right now for these fallen heroes. Oh, Lordy. I'm just Shigaraki then explains his identity crisis as he knows for a fact that he is Tomura Shigaraki, but at the same time he has a sensation that All For One has taken over his mind. He has two consciousness in one body. This perfectly aligns with my analysis last week that the final villain will be All For One against Deku, as he will completely take over his body to attain his final goal of world domination.
Of course!
Shigaraki uses a combination of radio waves, shockwave, and load up to send a huge EMP hyper beam blast, but the American jets narrowly dodge. We then learn the quirk of the world's strongest woman, Stars and Stripes. Her quirk is called New Order, which allows her to freely impose a new rule over something she is touching. Now, I don't want to blow my own horn, but this does prove Ball's deep prediction quirk has come true. Editors, please can you do a rewind of last week?
You can't tell me what to do!
All For One actually has friends around the entire globe, and by friends I mean supervillain friends. Whilst All Might managed to suppress organized crime almost completely in Japan, this isn't the case around the world, and if these guys go unchecked, they will eventually turn countries against each other, thus creating World War III per se. This would lead the whole globe into chaos, in which All For One will then take this opportunity to offer them peace via his New World Order by being its leader and following his ideology of chaos, and people should fall into desire, whilst he's the main top guy and he's saying, yeah, I'm the boss bitch, I'm the demon king. Chapter 330 clearly explains All For One's intentions to steal the New Order quirk because it's completely busted. After Stars and Stripes touches a target and calls its name, she is able to freely impose a new rule over it. This quirk has endless possibilities and is based kinda on the creativity of the user. For example, Stars and Stripes orders the atmosphere within 100 meters to ordain her rules and commands. She can break the physics and biology of the world all within one quirk. That is literally being like a god in a mortal realm. New Order equates to having the power of the code Yes and Death Note on a smaller scale.
No way!
This aligns with the final step of All For One's plan of world domination because it can completely destroy democracy and the will of others. For instance, he can touch Deku and remove his will. One For All will be taken away with ease. As we know, the only force that is stopping All For One is the clash of wills between the two vestige worlds. Furthermore, since All For One wants to put the entire world into chaos, it will only give him more power through the manipulation he can employ through the politics and the supremacy he will have by gaining this quirk. New Order would allow him to propose a new peace in the eyes of the beholder. And since we know civilizations crack so easily through chaos by just looking at what happened to Japan, they would accept this new peace for things to go back to normal again, thus meaning his dream to become the demon king of the world will come true. Just wait a moment for me to explain the demon stuff a bit further. Shigaraki survives the sudden disappearance of the atmosphere, to which Star mentions how anyone who's able to come all the way up here wouldn't die from that anyway. But then it created an opportunity for all the jets to fire lasers straight at him. Stars and Stripes tells the jet fighters that it isn't over yet, as Shigaraki emerges using both refraction and reflection to send back the beams that were shot at him. She imposes the rule that she can hold lasers on herself, catching the beam, and then she noticed that Shigaraki is healing anyway. But since Stars and Stripes imposed a new rule, the previous vacuum became undone. Shigaraki tries to go in for an attack, however, since she has super strength at all times, she does an aerial maneuver. Now, you guys understand what I mean now that, look how OP this is.
He needs some milk.
One of the rules of superhuman strength is not at All Might's power level, but it's enough to be above everyone else. Unfortunately, we know All Might's 100% One For All punches were not enough. Even Deku landing multiple 100% barrages on Shigaraki on the incomplete version of himself, he just tanked that shit, he ate it up. Shigaraki's base strength of punches was said to be at All Might's equivalent, so this is just a joke to be honest. Anyways, we learned that Stars and Stripes was saved by a Japanese exchange student while she was with her family at Santa Monica. She was ready to die, but she wanted to have someone save her sister at least. And that's when All Might appeared. Since that day, All Might had become her spiritual master, and she even styled her hair after him. Now, for any of you that have seen the Two Heroes movie, you will recognize this, and she is actually the girl All Might saved during the film, which makes the movie canon and adds a small origin story to Stars' character. But is it just me that finds it funny that this woman thinks it's a great time to explain her life whilst pummeling a man to death? Why would Shigaraki want to know this shit? Now I'm going to pass the video on to Yusuf as he will explain the whole concept of what is this demon, how did Shigaraki become one, and why All Might is going to die.
Now at this point, Shigaraki then complains that everywhere they go, it's always about All Might. Even an American foreigner is telling him about it. And that's precisely why he is the symbol of peace. Everything goes back to our analysis of Shigaraki saying time and time again that he will make sure he kills All Might, which only provides even more consistency to Night Eye's prediction due to him stating All Might will die a brutal death. What's more brutal than Shigaraki torturing you by decay inch by inch for fun? This idea of him killing All Might is reiterated in chapter 68 and 246. He says he needs to obliterate all the dregs All Might left behind. Shigaraki hates the ideology that All Might created, which is the concept of relying on heroes, and that of course they are indeed righteous due to the justice system that they represent. He tells Deku in chapter 68 that the literal smiles of civilization pisses him off. Shigaraki wants to point out this hypocrisy of the heroes because part of it is linked to his childhood where he wasn't saved by a hero. In fact, it was All For One who manipulated him in becoming who he is and molded Shigaraki to feel the way he does about heroes, specifically All Might. In the earlier chapters of My Hero Academia, All For One declares Shigaraki as a disciple, and he says that Shigaraki needs to become a symbol for the villains that can help them move freely. He says that the world needs to know the terror he represents. But coming back to the chapter, Stars and Stripes reminds Shigaraki that she now both touched him and said his name, which means she can now impose rules upon him. And that's when she activates her quirk, saying, if Shigaraki Tomura were to move even an inch from this point onwards, his heart will stop. But wait, it doesn't work, and that's because Shigaraki is no longer Shigaraki. Stars and Stripes being ambushed by All For One prevented her from gaining crucial information like the fact Shigaraki is evolving and has All For One's vestige inside of him. The aircraft pilot misinforming her that this is Shigaraki and not All For One already put her at a disadvantage and gave her false confidence that she is fighting someone normal. Remember guys, Stars and Stripes' ability New Order is dependent on the condition she sets. Like the Death Note, she had to think and speak the name of her target to then set the new rule she wished to impose. This new being doesn't identify as Shigaraki. As All For One puts it, if he were to quantify it, Shigaraki and All For One together were around 97 to 98% complete. This also encompasses All For One's takeover for Shigaraki, meaning they are no longer who they say they are, but in fact they're becoming a whole new being. And this brings us full circles into explaining the birth of a Demon King. Remember All For One's childhood with his brother? He stated the comic books will become a reality, where the villains will win in the end, with him becoming the Demon King of the world. Which is when in chapter 330 showcases this new being seemingly coming to life as Shigaraki's appearance changes. Funny enough, this change actually parallels and closely resembles this panel right here with Eri in chapter 159. Both have similar designs for a start, fostering the same colored hair and eyes, but on top of that, both are victims of society they lived in. However, in Eri's case, she is actually being freed from the horror by the heroes. On the other hand, in Shigaraki's case, it's the opposite. He instead has been consumed by the villains. Thematically going forwards, it would make a lot of sense for Eri to help rewind Shigaraki to a point where the full 100% possession of All For One hadn't taken place. This would then allow Deku to finally offer a helping hand like he always wanted to, and give Shigaraki the opportunity to escape the darkness of villainy, thus making the story come full circle, with the second One For All user holding his hand out to All For One's brother. But now it's Deku with Eri. But as we come back to chapter 330, we see Shigaraki's metamorphism, and All For One becomes the dominant being. He's the speaker in control, telling Shigaraki of his progression due to the untapped hatred. All For One shouts, "Hate me, nurture that hatred even more. Your hatred will give birth to a glorious future." This concept of hatred and despair is literally the key All For One needed to enter the mind of Shigaraki, effectively controlling him to become the Demon King. At this point, we then see a short flashback of Shigaraki's house with the dialogue of how it all began at that home, where his hatred slowly accumulated. Now, although it's not confirmed, we have been suggesting for a very long time that Shigaraki was targeted by All For One from the very beginning, being the grandson of his enemy Nana Shimura. All For One felt it would have been a poetic justice to use her own blood to destroy everything she stood for. Hence our community stating that All For One is the one who gave Shigaraki that decay quirk. Knowing Shigaraki's situation at home with his father, All For One waited for the right moment to intervene. In many ways, even though society failed Shigaraki, All For One was responsible for Shigaraki's hatred. All For One planted the seed and now is reaping what he sowed. And with all of this in mind, if All For One manages to steal the New Order quirk, he will literally be unstoppable. As he stated back in chapter 329, after obtaining the New Order quirk, everything else will be set in stone and just literally be formalities. Like, think about it, with the New Order quirk, All For One simply has to get near Deku and make a new rule that Deku has no resistance or will stopping him from taking his quirk. With that guys, we come to the end of the video. Make sure to smash that like button, ding that notification bell to stay updated with all our content, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't. Till then, we'll catch you lot next time.